Tony. Come on, show Adam. Felix and Tony. Come on, show Adam. They're the right reason for a new season. Together we rise.
Welcome back to another episode of On the Trail with Felix and Tony. I'm Felix Camacho, running for governor in this upcoming 2022 general election. And joining me each and every week and every moment on the trail of this campaign is my running mate, Senator Tony Ada. Senator,
Hey, good morning, everyone.
hey. So last week, of course, we didn't get through the all of the questions that we received. So we're going to do a part 2 on the question and answer episode. So let's get going on this on the trail, and we'll jump right into the questions.
So this past week on the trail, we started out on the Lions induction of officers and cabinet members. That was Lion District 204 with the new governor, Loisa Kabuhet, who took over the reins for Lion year 2022-2023. And Ed and I attended that ceremony, and I think you went over to the chamber, didn't you?
We had to split duties, and Joanne and I had joined the Guam Chamber of Commerce on their 90th anniversary event. And that evening, they honored Joey Crisostomo from Cars Plus, and it was really interesting to see his life story as a young man. Of course, young guy starting off at 11, 12 years old and working alongside with Henry Simpson, and how he was really into motorcycle racing and really established his name. The other part of the story too is how his wife Joyce came into his life, and the life journey they spent together was really touching to see how they had both succeeded, and now they're a tremendous couple, and of course amazing business success. And so that was, of course, the same evening that we had to split duties.
Yeah, and they give so much to the community, giving back to the community, helping out, and with the Pink Ladies as well. Joyce is involved with the Pink Ladies, and Joy in his own right has done so much for the community.
That's right.
This past week, we also had the social gathering at Good Times with the St. Nicholas Salas Metanani supporters, and of course the Camacho Ada supporters, and it was well attended.
Well attended. It was a lot of fun. The music was a bit loud for me, but it was a lot of fun. I do want to jump back to last Sunday evening or Sunday afternoon, and we were able to join in with the Infant of Prague. It was their 70th anniversary, and they were able to go back in time and tell the story of Infant of Prague. I was honored that they had asked me to come up and say a few words as they closed out the event. But that's the Infant of Prague Nursery. As you well know, it's been run by the Sisters of Mercy. It is located up in Ta'i Mangilaw. And I'd gone there, I believe, as a 4 or 5-year-old. And to listen to all the other stories of others that had been there, many successful people. But, sum it all, it was a home away from home for many young toddlers that were starting off in nursery, first time away from home, but to see all that they've done over the years, 70 years of success, and influencing and caring for our youth on island. So again, thanks to the Sisters of Mercy for that.
Yes. Thank you, Sisters of Mercy, for always caring for our children. And I also had some nieces and nephews that's in Infant of Prague also.
Yes,
they were much younger.
And well, not necessarily that it's on the trail, but right now it's ongoing. We had just visited, of course, our many supporters that are canvassing in northern Guam, and what a tremendous red hat wave that's going on out there.
Yeah,
exciting.
I met with them earlier this morning, kicking off the canvassing, and I know you joined them later on. So it's a good tag team there, man. We just keep that going.
Well, one thing I do want to mention is I was also able to eat at a place called Martinez Kitchenette yesterday in Dedido. Oh, amazing. You got to try their pork steak with onions. Yeah. Incredible.
Well, that's a place that makes also the banana lumpia. So
really good turon and pinakbet. Yeah. So I enjoyed it.
And then you also had a lot of visits with different business establishments as well.
Absolutely, walking in, and it's nice to see the shop owners But I understand you were also at the Guam Contractors Association event up there at Father Duenas Phoenix Center.
At the Phoenix Center.
How was that?
They had so many vendors there as well. We were able to talk with them and kind of get an insight as to what was the roadblocks in getting people and or contracts with the federal government. And it's actually employees. They're having a hard time getting employees, and they're just trying to see what they can do to get people to come out and start applying for the jobs so that, we can start getting back to normal here.
It's funny how Governor Liu talks about, our unemployment rate is so far down. And yet you've got in the real world, with employees that are looking for workers, employers that are looking for workers, they can't find them. They're not interested. So, you can throw all the numbers you want out there and say, this is our record, and look at our record versus Felix and Tony. But the reality, and that's the thing about it, people on the streets, people living their lives know that those numbers they don't speak the truth. They don't. The reality is out there with the people that are, and so I just wanted to point that out. Yeah. Numbers are numbers, man. They can twist it, fake news, do whatever you want. But hey, you go out there, talk to the people, and that's what I like about you, brother.
Yeah.
You've always got me covered, man. When I'm doing something else, you got the other side covered. So, hey,
there's a boom.
All right, hey.
First time we reach across there.
No. Hey, this is how cool I think you are.
Yeah, stop it.
Man.
Yeah. But we really done, we really, with the business sector people, it's really taking a toll on a lot of businesses because people are not coming out to work because they're still dependent upon those, those stimulus that are going out and things like that.
Yeah.
So we ended our session yesterday, and that was the last day. It was voting, and unfortunately, once again, Bill 11 has failed to be overridden. And I'm really, I just don't know what the emergency is.
So could you explain to our audience what is Bill 11?
So Bill 11, all it would have done was cancel the public health emergency, and it does not prevent the governor from calling another emergency. All it says is that when she does call another emergency, every 60 days she would have to come back to the legislature to renew that declaration. Okay. And that's to keep the checks and balances. And that's the problem today, is that there is no checks. Well, she has a lot of checks, but there are no balances, because the legislature does not know what's going on with the administration because they're writing checks like there's no tomorrow.
And so it's out of balance. And did the override fail along party lines?
No, it didn't fail on party lines. They had both. It was split. So
okay,
yeah. But other than that, we hope that we're able to get it on the floor again next month. Or you know what? Who knows? Maybe when the political pressure starts to really, the administration feels that pressure from the Democrat candidates that, hey, you need to call this off because, man, we're really hurting out here. That the people are just clamoring up on us. Who knows? She may just say, okay, we're going to lift it. Because public health's role has really scaled back. The National Guard role has scaled back. Those who are hospitalized, the number has dropped tremendously. I think they're down to only 4 hospitalizations. So what's the emergency? Yeah. The emergency is they just want to continue with their procurement being unchecked and their hiring process being unchecked as well. And I think Guam is hired, and there you go, another unemployment rate, because Guam has hired almost, 500 employees in this past couple of months. So that's it. And, hopefully we'll be able to get it overwritten next month. But we're going to go into that Lou and Josh had and clear this record that they have up. And okay. So who's better for Guam's economy? Well, naturally the The natural answer would be a Camacho Ada administration would be better for Guam's economy, because we don't want to be where we're at today 4 years from now. We want to be in a better situation. And a better situation is with a government that's transparent, a government that's honest, a government that's held accountable, and a government that's for the people, and not the government that we have currently.
And the real question is, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? And certainly not. I had a conversation with a couple of individuals that are in business, and they just talked about the administrative staff. One individual said, I've recently lost 4 of my administrative staff, from secretarial positions on to administrative. And I asked, where did they go? They left to the West Coast. If they, depending on where they have family, because if they have family there, then there's a place then they can settle in until they get their feet firmly planted. But they're leaving Guam because of what they consider to be a better life elsewhere. And these are people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. I mean, that's that next generation that we're counting on to step up and lead this island. But they've given up. And sadly, and he says, how do I replace these people when I go out and try and employ other people? I can't find the people with the same level of skill or quality that they've built up over the years. You can't go out and find them. So you've got to, if you do find someone, you bring them in, and you've got to groom them again for a number of years. And how much longer will they be here? And so he says they're going off to Washington State. If they've got relatives in San Diego, probably there, Las Vegas, Arizona, Texas, some even as far as Florida. So wherever they have relatives where they can help them out, get started, they're leaving. And so these unemployment numbers, like I said earlier, you can throw all the numbers you want out there, but look around and you talk to the employers that are looking for people and workers, and they're saying we can't find them. And I think part of the problem is the fact that we've heard many a time. They say, well, with all the federal dollars we're getting in aid, and again, thanks to Congressman Michael Sinicolas for all he did in fighting for the monies that were given to Guam in the recovery effort from the pandemic and from COVID-19. They're saying, I'm making more money staying home and remaining unemployed than I am to go out and seek for work. So those numbers are not really telling.
Yeah. And I think
if people are not looking for work, they're not counted.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so we have fewer people on Guam than we did, 12 years ago. So as I mentioned, people are fed up. They've either stopped looking for jobs, they left island, or both. And it's been forcing people to get vaccinated, to get employment benefits, or closing their businesses. Employers' businesses did not help the situation. And so those that are not working and are not looking for work do not count as unemployed. So it's easy for her to say, the unemployment numbers are down. But I'm telling you again, look at the reality. And that's fake news. Yeah. That's fake news, man. You get out there and we are having difficulty, even in the construction industry. They were saying, I was talking to a major construction company, and they said, if we have people that are interested in working in what's considered to be under the sun type jobs in the field of construction, we have them in ironwork. We have jobs available as carpenters. We have jobs available as masons. If you want those jobs, there's work for the next 10 years guaranteed. And many of them with the federal projects that are ongoing with the military buildup. So there you have it. I mean, that's what I have to say.
Yeah. And
homelessness. Let's talk about that.
Homelessness. I think during your time, homeless numbers were down. Unfortunately, we had 2 typhoons back to back.
Right.
So naturally, the structures of their homes were taken away.
Yeah.
And I believe the census when the homeless count back then counted those that were not did not have a permanent structure, right?
Well, you think about it too, the methodology in counting, exactly that. And so, with 2 successive super typhoons that came, any structure that was considered substandard, those people were also considered homeless, because there was a lot of damage, a lot of families were displaced, and we had a tremendous job in trying to find these people that were displaced because of the storm a place to stay and settle down. We had to work along with the mayors. We had to work with nonprofit organizations. We had to work with faith-based organizations to get them. And so, again, throwing out numbers. But, again, let's take a look at what's really going on. You think anybody believes that homelessness is better off now? And their situation, they're saying, our numbers are less now than they were before. Take a look around this island. Go to these intersections. Look at over there by Micronesia Mall. I've been there, and I'm telling you, it continues to grow. And everywhere you go, you see people on the intersections begging for money.
Yeah.
And the homeless situation with you've got many businesses where people are camping out overnight just to find shelter from the rain, and we are in the rain season. So again, open your eyes and look around. And again, it's what they're throwing out there is absolutely fake. Everybody knows when you look around, and compared to my time, we didn't have this situation with people camping out in the boonies or anywhere else they could find shelter. Yeah. And so
they weren't at the intersections.
No.
Today, we have more people at intersections at McDonald's, Harmon McDonald's intersection, Micro Mall intersection, ITC intersection, Chief Kapua intersection, Superior Court intersection, Bank of Guam intersection. So they are just all over the place, and it's no longer concentrated or less homelessness then. It's more now than ever before. And what they have now is the federal government that gives them money to provide housing for them. So that's how you see majority of them in some type of shelter, because naturally they got the money from the feds. They got the money from the pandemic. So when you got $2 billion, of course you're going to be able to do something for, and that's how it goes. It's just this $2 billion that we've never had before, in addition to their almost $1 billion budget the previous fiscal year. So it just goes to show that they don't have the situation under control. They're just trying to make it seem they have it under control.
Yes. All right. Let's move on to government deficit. They say they have zero. I'll tell you something. You talk to many of the vendors out there that are owed money by the government of Guam, 30, 60, 90, 120 days. And they're saying, if they say there's no government deficit, why aren't they paying me? If they've got all this federal money, why aren't they paying their bills? And they went on to say that we've got this massive deficit from my time. But let me tell you what, when you walk in to office, I assumed a $225 million general fund deficit that was carried over from the previous administration, okay?
Right. Mm-hmm.
We had the SARS epidemic scare between 03 and 04. We had Typhoon Chataan and Pongsanwa. The damages that were carried over were from 2002, and I believe the estimate was something around $850 million of damage to the storm, and we had to work along with FEMA on that. We had the Bush Jobs Relief Act of 2003. We had a judgment of from the retirees for cost of living allowance. They call it the Lola Cola, $123 million. And I tell you that whole lawsuit it was a class action lawsuit that stemmed from legislative action many, many years ahead. And as they began to dole out these benefits for cost of living allowance, the legislature realized, and the administration prior to me, we can't afford this. And so they took it away from them by law. They said, well, some receive it, others didn't. And so there is an injustice here. And that was the basis of that lawsuit, $123 million. But you see, the thing about it is we didn't kick the can down the road, man. We took all these problems. And then we had the earned income tax credit settlement. Prior administration paid some of it, then they stopped. Again, another class action lawsuit resulting in a $90 million settlement. And then, of course, we had the 2008 economic recession, global recession. The market crashed, the stock market. It was a horrible situation. And then, of course, the solid waste receivership at a cost of $202 million. And that was back in the year 2008. You think about that dump. It goes back to the end of World War II. What used to be a valley was now a mountain, and so the environmental people said, "Listen, you are running out of airspace. You are at the top of the mountain. You cannot fill any more. So you've run out of space and you've run out of time, and you've got to build a new landfill." And I remember talking with a judge saying, "Let's do this," understanding that the local government, at that time, the Guam legislature, will not provide the cooperation that I need to find the money to build, to close Audit, first of all, and build a new landfill. It's political. And my political opponents were saying, wouldn't it be great if we could get Camacho into some kind of a receivership on his record? And sure enough, that's what happened. And so now you have a Democratic opponent saying, look at what happened during Camacho.
Yeah.
So it's all this political gamesmanship, you know. But the problem is, it had to be resolved.
Yeah.
And so when you add that in, and then we had the permanent injunction with, with people with disabilities in the mental health permanent injunction at a cost of $16 million, in addition to another $12 million that was not anticipated. So when you add those all up, to go into the bond market, it required two different bond transactions, and it was the largest at that time for our type of government. Our financial condition had improved. We had bond rating improvements, and so you can't just go and borrow money as a governor. You require the cooperation of the Guam legislature, the policymakers, and they've got to pass this by law and give me the authority. When we got the authority, then we did, working with Gita, to go into the market and borrow the money to resolve long-standing problems that extended prior to my administration, years and decades back. But that's the thing about it, you know, in leadership, my friend. If people stop coming to you to resolve problems, that means you are no longer a leader. You see, as a leader, you have to take on the responsibility of problem solving, whether it was on your watch or prior to your watch, but you're tasked with solving that problem. And that's what we did. It takes courage, and it takes steadfastness, it takes persistence. You've got to make your case, and that's what we did. This current governor, all she can do is point fingers, and what an easy job she has. Here's $2 billion. All you've got to do is send it out to the people that you had closed their businesses down, that you had shut their lives down, that you had closed their schools, that you had closed their churches, that you told them, separate, wear a mask, get a vaccine if you want to work in this administration, or you want to work in this agency, or you got to work here. The lives were completely shut down and closed. Oh, but by the way, here's the money I'm going to give you. So not only did I disrupt your life and stop your livelihood, but I'm going to give you money now. And so, vote for me. Yeah. I gave you money, but I also shut your job down. But I'm giving you money, so, you know, it's almost like if she's got a banker mentality saying, I am going to give you money, but as a banker, you've got to pay it back. But I tell you what, here's the deal. Pay me back with a vote, because I gave you money. But was it really her money to give? No. This is money that the federal government gave. This is money that our Congressman Michael San Nicolas worked hard for in getting our fair share and then some. And all she had to do was dole it out. But still, she's got $300 million sitting in her bank, earning interest every day.
And when you look
making money.
And when you look at the different items that we were talking about with the earned income tax credit, it was Congressman San Nicolas that got it added to have the federal government start paying that now and relieve us of almost $70 million per year.
Thank you, Congressman Michael San Nicolas.
And then when you look at also
where credit is due,
the solid waste receivership took care of that, Gov. You took care of that. They started getting solid waste online. We got trash collections. We got, the rollout bins and everything. And where is it at today? Where is it at today? Trucks are broken down under this administration. It's failing. They're failing.
It's going to take 2 years to replace it, from what I understand.
Because they failed to take action. What they did not do is pre-plan.
Well, what happened is she
Be
basically put the government in a comatose state for the last 2.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Shut everything down. Go home. You're going to get your paycheck every 2 weeks. And why? Well, the legislature already appropriated the money. You're covered. No problem. You know, I recall talking to one person in the private sector, and he says, man, if you're in the private sector, we're just out of luck. So what do you mean? He says, you know, if you're really fortunate if you work for the military or if you work for the federal government, because you're going to get a paycheck. You know, if you work for government of Guam, you're going to get a paycheck. And you know, but if you're in the private sector, we've been laid off. We've been forced to shut our businesses down. We still got to pay the bank. We're going bankrupt. You know, so we're the ones that are left out in the dark. And then we don't qualify. Many of us didn't qualify for the different programs that they had established through GITA. And so, man, did they struggle. Yeah, anyway, moving on.
The government deficit, though, when you look at that, right, Gov?
Yeah.
You had a clean audit, didn't you?
Oh, we had clean audits.
Years, huh?
Absolutely. We sure did.
They have questionable expenditures of $41 million. So, you know,
I'm telling you something. I'm telling you something, my friend. When you've had an emergency declaration and you follow the money, you didn't have to follow the typical procurement process. There's a lot of things that have gone on that the people of Guam and many other businesses are wondering, why did so-and-so in such a business, they seem to have a free pass on everything. We want an investigation. We want to find out what happened here. Where's the fairness? Where's the equity in this? And that's what's so disgusting. It's like only certain people had their hand in the cookie jar.
Well, I guess the certain people who had their hand in the cookie jar should be investigated then.
Yeah, certainly that's going to have to happen.
You know?
Absolutely.
Sounds good. So
Okay.
we'll move on to the next
Chocolate
one.
chip or peanut butter?
Oh, macadamia.
Oatmeal? They certainly had their pick.
Yeah, they
Okay.
sure did. Tax refunds. Interesting subject on that one.
All right.
Yeah. So, you know, they say they paid in 4 weeks. It's court ordered. It's court ordered. They have to pay it. Now, whether you want to pay it in 4 weeks, as long as you paid within the 6 months after the individual has filed, that's required by the courts now. Yeah. So, you know, for them to say, well, you know, we're paying out tax refunds, you should be, because, you know, first of all, the courts require it. Second of all, you had $2 billion to put into the tax refund account and give back.
And you know, let me just add to that. Again, I stepped in 2003. I had a $225 million general fund deficit to begin with. The government was bankrupt. Number two, there was a $200 million tax refund that was still due. I mean, do your numbers. It was a very difficult time, and so, but we continued to work at it, and eventually by the time Governor Eddie Calvo was able to stepped in,
mm-hmm.
It was no longer an issue.
Yeah,
and the current incumbent is a recipient of all the hard work and that's the thing about it. You know, we have laid foundation after foundation and built upon that, and had the discipline and everything else, and so. We come in and we fix problems, and others step in, and you know they're the beneficiaries of it. But they throw numbers out there, and they like to confuse the matters, and that's why we're here. We're here to clear it up. So,
and I think if they just continue to build upon the foundation that was built upon in the first two administrations of the two Republican governors, yourself and Governor Eddie Calvo, you know, I think Guam would have been in a much more strengthened environment today. But what they did within the first year of their administration, they started excavating and, you know, digging holes and trenches and breaking foundations and trying to reestablish the wheel, you know, reinvent it. Well, we don't want it circle. We want it to be oblong or something. I don't know. So we'll see how that turns out, because it's not turning out really good for them. Okay,
now we're moving into the yearly construction activity average, and they claim that they've got more than double in construction activity.
Well, when you got $7 billion in military buildup.
And who laid the foundation for that,
You
my friend?
did.
Between myself and Eddie Calvo,
Right.
it all started. You know, it really began in 2008 at the tail end of my administration, midway through it, that we began the hard work of making the case for Guam, and it continued through Eddie. And so this yearly construction activity average, they claim, is more than us. Can I ask you about Simon Sanchez High School? Is that part of that figure? Can I ask you about Agania Pool or Derrida Pool? Is that part of that yearly activity, construction activity? I think it's under assessment. The answer is no, it's not. No, it's not. So come on.
Yeah.
I mean, you're in control of. You can throw all these numbers out there, but people know what's going on. Yeah. You can't even build a house nowadays. Come on,
and that's
because
what it
of
comes
construction
down to.
Costs and labor costs. So, look, taking credit when you didn't lift a finger. How can you say that you had all this construction activity, and your averages are double of what happened in our time, when you've had an economy that was absolutely shut down? Come on.
By their own doing. They shut down the economy because they wanted to shut down the economy.
Yeah.
And during your time, Gov, you built schools.
Absolutely.
There's police stations, fire stations. Just everything that was going on during your time. And the construction, the yearly construction, those numbers don't jive. I mean, well, they jiving, but the numbers don't jive.
Well, it's simply their typical approach of trying to fool the people yet again. Yeah. You know, so
we got to go back up there
let's
to
look around.
Cost of living. Yeah,
cost of living.
You went down a little bit far.
Oh, I did. I'm so excited. I just continued. I just leapfrogged over that thing. It's like we want to get through and leapfrog over this election and just get let's just start working.
Yeah, let's just get Camacho out in there already.
Okay.
And we'll be right back.
The people of Guam are outraged at the growing crime rate and lack of justice on Guam. They are outraged at the number of criminals arrested, released, and back on the streets committing more crimes. This must not be allowed to continue. Along with crime prevention and reduction initiatives, Felix and Tony will work with lawmakers, law enforcement, and the courts to reduce repeat offenders. Crime prevention, rehabilitation where possible, and harsh punishment for criminals. This will be justice for all.
I'm Felix Camacho, and I approve this message.
And now, back on the trail with Felix and Tony.
Okay, then you take it on. Take it on that cost of living topic there, sir.
So they're saying the cost of living just went up 11% in 3 years. Yours went up 51% in 8 years.
All right. Have you looked at your recent power bill? Have you looked at the cost when you go in and shop and your grocery cart and you say, wait a minute, how much did you say this is?
Water's going up. I think water went up 5% this week. So
gasoline. I mean, come on.
So yeah, I'm a little bit confused where they think they got their numbers. I mean, maybe they took the first year on your administration after the typhoons.
Perhaps. But the more and more I look at this, it's like a comedy act.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much a joke.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So I just have to say, ha 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 ha. I think that's pretty funny. Yeah. I don't believe it. And the people of Guam should not believe this incredibly deceiving fake news ad that they're putting out there. Okay? Come on.
Well, when they say it's on the web, then it has to be true.
Oh, if it's on social media, it must be true. Okay, because they said it.
Yeah.
All right. Numbers.
Yeah, tax revenues collected.
Okay. Are you jumping?
No. This,
okay. That's the. Go ahead.
So tax revenues collected, they're claiming $816 million in 2021, and you have $499 million in 2010. So after $2 billion, I wouldn't expect anything less than $816 million. But that $499 million, let me tell you, Gov, that was hard work of our people, hard work of our island, hard work of the administration, so that we can keep our economy generating and moving forward. This $816 million, $2 billion given to the government of Guam. And so her discretion to use however she wanted to use. So,
So it again, it's a shell game. The governor Lou wants the people to believe that she did something completely different to collect taxes and more revenues than we did 12 years ago. But there's a few basic truths that the people of Guam need to understand. Number one is to reiterate what you said. If you've got over $2 billion in federal funds that circulated through our economy over the past 2 years, and of course, many of these people that were told, you are now unemployed, you're not going to work, business is shut down, you're going to receive unemployment benefits. Well, those unemployment recipients are taxable,
Right.
And so that's taxable income from the unemployment benefits that they received rather than what they got from their jobs. And what did many say? I'm making more money staying at home than I am if I went to work. So why should I go look for work? I'm going to stay home and collect as much federal money as I can. And that's what happened. Number two, let's not forget, and let's remind the business community out there. What did she say about the business privilege tax? It's forever.
Forever.
And it was only supposed to be for a short period of time.
And
So
then sunset,
25% more. It went from 4 to 5%. So 25% more or higher than it was 12 years ago.
And that's riding on the backs of the people again. Yeah.
And then secondly, okay, so we talked about the cost of living. You've got inflation. So everything costs so much more. And so record inflation also inflates the tax revenues. Because of the purchasing power of these tax revenues, it's much less now. The dollar is worth so much. We've got inflation at the highest it's been in over 40 years. Thank you, Mr. Biden. Thank you, Auntie Lou. So come on. Let's just... this Comedy Act, it's got to end. Let's move on. Sir, I think we're done with that, with clearing the record. The Comedy Act is over. We've addressed her claims on homelessness, on government deficit, on tax refunds, cost of living, yearly construction activity, average, and tax revenues collected. So I think we're done with that. And also unemployment and homelessness, government deficit. So lots we talked about today.
Yeah, it's just, I'm glad we cleared all that up because
All right.
we can't let it continue on that
No.
on that road. So, what do we have left? Well, we got questions. Okay, we're going to finish off some of these questions here.
So I got one from 12, Amon_C. Can the SLFRF money be used to rebuild schools and not just Band-Aid fixes?
Well, Gov, I know that when we get into this administration the coming year, that we will look at not Band-Aid fixes any longer for our educational system, but to go down that road again on how you did it the first time in building new schools for our children and get a good assessment of what's needed and how we're going to go forward and get these schools taken care of.
It's going to be a monumental task, but I think with proper, as you mentioned, planning, proper assessment, estimating the cost, looking for the revenue sources, and then a plan on how we begin to shift these schools out. Also, a changing demographic. Student population has actually decreased, and so we need to look at what GDOE has in plan for their for short-term, mid-term, and long-term. Remember, they're almost basically a semi-autonomous agency. Their own elected board, their own superintendent, and yet they depend on the general fund for all of their operations. They account for the lion's share of all the monies going into GovGuam. And here's the thing that we have to remember, that within DOE, I think roughly between 85 to 90% of the budget is spent on personnel.
Right.
Yeah, and so most businesses don't operate under that model. So there's got to be a certain portion put aside for maintenance of facilities and again the required upgrade of facilities and equipment and material. Yeah. And not just focusing on salary.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's how that when that new charter school opened up, I learned when they opened up their new campus, and it cost them a little bit over $20 million, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and when you see how they're doing these things now, right, and maintenance and their education, their teachers and administrators. So, I'm sure that public schools will be able to follow the same structure, or even
Yeah, I think one thing that we have to point out is that the per student cost, the average cost, when you break it all down based on budget amount given for Guam Department of Education, GDOE, versus those in the charter schools, they receive much less in the charter schools. So when you average out how much they're spending per student, not only for personnel, but for operations, it's so much less than GDOE. So they have had to build in efficiencies in operation and in administration and in teaching for within these schools. And so taking the title I Learn, there's much that we can learn.
Great.
Or the GDOE can learn.
Yeah.
So it's going to be an educational process for GDOE to perhaps actually learn how efficiencies have been implemented within the charter schools. Thank you.
Next question.
From Familian Gulfigan. Once again, rainy season is here. Roadways are getting flooded, especially the area near the intersection at Polaris. Not sure if the current administration is aware of it or even doing anything about it. When you occupy Adelup, how will you address the issue and get proper officials to work on it?
Okay, I do know that I've talked to some people that were affiliated with Public Works Gov Guam and are somewhat familiar with that location. The under road drainage pipes that are there have been established since I believe by the U.S. Navy, and they've obviously are now too small. Secondly, there's a requirement to perhaps even elevate the road, so it's going to require a major civil work in elevating the road, and then building larger culverts for the water to pass from the swamp. Because what's happening is, with the rain coming off, especially when there's a deluge of rain coming off the hills into the swamp area, as you're heading south, that would be left of the roadway. It begins to fill up very quickly and then spill over the road because the drainage under the road is insufficient in size. And so it's going to require major civil work to do that, elevation of the road and larger drainage pipes. But the work has to be done. Proper planning and execution and funding.
And I think funding with the last funding that was passed by the president of the infrastructure funding can, look into doing that portion of the road so that people don't have to, traverse to that every time or traverse through Cross Island Road every time the rainy season comes around and the floods are there,
But here's one thing I want to point out. If you go around the island and you look at what's happening right now, there's a lot of paving going on in this political season.
Right.
A month before the election, roads are being paved. And these are not major roads like was just mentioned down at Polaris, where monies would be set aside and proper planning, but these are roads that the incumbent administration feels is politically advantageous for them, so that as they pave these secondary roads and other roads within the villages, that they will secure votes.
Well,
so it right now the road paving program is really a political road paving program to garner votes for the incumbent administration.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it. People know.
Yeah, they do.
They know.
And I think they even paved a private area, haven't they?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They sure have.
Because I know this one area was very contentious. They tried to get it paid for the longest time, but it was told there's nothing can be done because it's a private area, and this administration has paved it.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely
interesting. Next question.
Okay, from James Nicholas. Who's the chief of police on the Camacho side?
I think that's a bit premature. Our approach has been, we can't promise anything until, you can't promise anything that's not a guarantee. We have to get in first,
Right.
and then we will have to consider such positions.
And that's when the transition team comes into play, looking at all the different agencies and departments within the administrative branch, and looking how we can fill the different positions and different boards and commissions as well.
Right.
Yeah. Next question.
From John Tanavasa. I would like to ask if you would end the emergency declaration, but it's obvious the current administration would leave it in place if they win and end it if they lose.
Well, Bill 11, we tried to end it this past Friday, and unfortunately, we were unsuccessful because of the political play that happens down at the legislature, and that's unfortunate because, when the people of Guam elected the senators, they elected the senators to be that check and balance for the administration, right? So the three branches of government, every branch should be, accountable for their actions. So the people of Guam have to hold those individuals who do not want checks and do not want balances accountable, and hopefully they take care of that situation in this upcoming election. And likewise with the administration, place in a new administration that will be accountable, that will be transparent, and that will have checks and balances and work with the other branches of government. That's Camacho Ada.
And to add to that, really the response in this entire emergency declaration, it's so obvious to the people of Guam that this is no longer a medical response. This is a political campaign response, and they're using it to their advantage. When you consider the amount of, all right, let's do this. Excuse me. Let's take a look at the number of ads just in the print section of the newspapers, whether it be the Pacific Daily News or the Guam Post, and you look at all the different ads about the programs that they are offering, for one thing or another. There could be an average of 3, maybe 4 ads within each paper. And when you calculate the cost per newspaper, we're talking thousands of dollars. And when you estimate, and it's paid for by the Office of the Governor, or it could be paid for by Department of Public Health and Social Services. So that's how they justify it as part of this pandemic thing. But it continues to, you even read the verbiage, it's all political.
Yeah.
And so if you calculate the cost, what is it, 500,000, maybe 750,000, maybe $1 million in ads that they've used throughout this pandemic to promote their programs and of course put their slogan in there.
Their pictures as well.
Their pictures as well and testimonials. And so you have to wonder, could that money have not gone to the people that really need it instead of pushing your political agenda? And that's the thing that people find absolutely disgusting. It's so obvious, it's so in your face, and there's no shame in using these monies to push their political agenda when it could have gone to the people that really need it. And
so when you look
but such is politics.
Yeah, when you look
the
at
way they play it,
the print, the what do you call it, on air, and also social media, I bet easily several $1 million.
absolutely.
Yeah, that you're right. Could have went to other programs, other programs that could have helped our people.
Shame, shame, shame.
Next question.
From Vicky Shiragi. What are your long-range plans for aging school buildings?
Well, we kind of talked about that earlier.
Right.
In how we definitely need to, first of all, take a look at the agency that is responsible for this, which is Guam Department of Education, the GDOE board, the superintendent, and then, of course, in the legislature, you've got your education committee, and see what they've got planned out there. But there has to be a true understanding of what are the short-term, mid-term, and long-term needs, and a very methodical plan put in place that would have to span, several administrations to get this thing done because of the number of schools that are out there and how old they are. Factor in the shortage of labor in outside the fence, and the cost of goods and materials. This is going to be a monumental task but it must begin, and it must be methodical and well thought out, with a clear plan on how to structure this, and even the logistics of where do you move the students as you close one school and rebuild another. So, but it's all about the idea and the concept of restoration. We have to go in and restore and protect the environment that both the students are in and of course the administrators and teachers.
And it's becoming a very growing concern because of the number of school closures that are coming up. They close FB Oceanville, and looking at FBLG, and what other schools are going to be closed for safety concerns.
And on that, I would like to add. We of course understand that they're moving along in the lawsuit against the Archdiocese of Ganya. And you have to take a look at the Catholic schools that are out there. And the first one that had shut down was San Vicente.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And so with the settlement, the financial condition of the Archdiocese is in dire straits. Will there be other schools that have to be shut down? Because we not only at the Catholic schools, but all the other private schools, faith-based and the like, that really take up a good percentage of students that are in private school where the parents are paying for it. Will there be opportunity for other charter type schools to come in, other private sector schools to come in and fill the void, and how will that all play out? But we do have to watch what will happen because of the financial condition, the settlement, and the lawsuit against the Archdiocese by those that were sexually abused as youths. And will that have an impact upon even the inventory of schools within the Catholic school system and its impact? Where will those students go? Will they transfer back into GDOE and exacerbate and change the demographics and the number of students in there? So much to consider.
Yeah, and I think one of the news medias also did a poll or survey on the condition, rate the condition of your child's school, and I believe almost 50% rated their child's school an F.
Wow.
So
that's sad.
These are just our education system is a growing concern, and it's something that we're going to have to work with the education department, like you said, and the board and the superintendent.
Okay.
Next.
I got three more. One from Magnificat Fishing. I don't know. Is it easier to build schools or a hospital if we are currently in a declared state of emergency?
I think we're talking about two different types of facilities. I mean, certainly a hospital, the minimum average is $1 million per bed. That's when they factor if you're going to have 100 bed facility or 200 bed facility, versus a school that basically is a structure with an empty structure with classrooms, cafeteria, and the like. So they're two completely different things. It's easier to build schools because a hospital is an extremely complex type of construction.
Right.
And requirements.
But I don't think they can. I think the question, right, is something under the emergency declaration. That the emergency declaration just allows the governor to bypass procurement, bypass for the emergency situation at hand. Ramp up the National Guard and things of that nature. So I think it's perhaps they're just kind of seeing if they can build a school or a hospital under the declaration. But
From an anonymous. Hi, I just wanted to ask if part of Camacho Ada infrastructure plan is to make the roads safer for bicyclists. It would be nice to have safer roads for them, and I think it would also encourage more people to not just bike outdoors, but for other vehicles to be more careful and mindful of them.
yeah, I know several laws have been passed in the legislature that anytime now a roadway is reconstructed, not just repaved, not resurfaced, but reconstructed, that it must include bike lanes and sidewalks. So, with the limited number of government easements or government property along the different roadways,
Right.
it makes that task a lot more difficult. But I think what the perhaps something of it won't be a solution, but where they can start mandating, or the legislature can mandate use of lanes like they currently do, but properly marked and striped, so people know that bikes are also on this lane as well.
I have to say, you would observe on a weekend, mostly on a Sunday, if you're out traversing and traveling on a morning, or typically early morning, you'll see groups of cyclists, and these are road bikes. Sometimes you would have mountain bikes, but they're out there on the road and traveling in packs. It's really nice to see that has happened. Off the roads, you see there's when it's the dry season, many people are into mountain biking, but more and more, I have to just explain from my experience being a motorcyclist. I had my Road King Harley that I used to ride on weekends and really enjoy going out with groups of riders. I've also done a lot of. I'd have my moped, and go out there again with groups of friends and driving around the island. The awareness of other drivers in vehicles and trucks, even commercial vehicles, it's there's a lot to be desired, because they're not used to cyclists on the road, and there's a lot of close calls.
Right.
We've had some tragic situations where cyclists have been hit by vehicles and have lost their lives, and so it is a great concern. So there has to be an education of many of the drivers out there, that if there are going to be more and more cyclists on the road, there has to be an education and awareness of those that are on the road for their safety.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, and the last one. Do you have any plans on helping the stray animal community on island? Euthanasia or putting animals down is not a better option, especially to animal lovers like Low Rex Gabs. Question.
I'm an animal lover as well. I have a dog that stays inside the house with us, and Sandy's very protective of Annette and Allie, and she makes herself comfortable anywhere she likes. Chewed up my bedroom door, but that's okay. But yeah, I think taking care of our stray population. I know they had at one time the program where they were sending strays off island to other areas where they were adopted, trying to perhaps look at what we can do to help house more of these animals until they're adopted, or find ways for them, and continue the spade and neuter program. And I think euthanasia should be a really a last resort, something used only for those that are critically ill, that cannot be helped medically, and but we got to find a humane way first to take care of the strays.
I do want to add, though, that I know that there are estimates of tens of thousands of stray dogs out there. Story yesterday, I was up in northern Dedido area, and just going door to door. One house we walked up to, there was a pack of 12 dogs that came out and greeted us in a very not necessarily friendly way, but very protective way. So there's a responsibility, I think, for those also that have pets, and if you're going to have them outdoors, then can they be spayed or neutered? And another thing is, though, people don't really recognize that there's a lot of stray cats too that are out there. And then going beyond that, if you want to talk about the humane situation, but also the impact of feral pigs, there are so many. They call it babin halumtano. There's so many pigs that are out in the wild now, and overpopulating to the point where they're fearlessly going out into the streets, knocking over trash cans to look for something to eat, and these are very smart, powerful animals too. So we have to take a look at how to control that also. So this is going to require a lot of attention, a lot of resources, and a lot of thought in how to approach it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, that's it.
Yeah.
Well,
So
coming up on the trail, we got the general election in about 35 days. Just imagine that, 35 days before the general election. I'm excited. Are you?
absolutely, absolutely.
I'm
Every
sorry.
day it's like
Hey, before we get to the clearing the record for next time, it's 38 days. I was so excited. I said, wow, 35. Oh, my goodness.
well, I jumped over a couple of topics myself, so you're fine.
Oh, okay, thank you. So we got 38 days to the general election, and you can still register by going online to gec.guam.gov/register, or visit the Guam Election Commission office at the Oka Building, Tamuning, or by calling our headquarters at 671-475-2222. And early voting begins on October 11th to November 3rd at the Westin. And GEC will be opening satellite offices for voting on Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. On October 15th at Okudu, October 22nd at GCC, and October 29th at Maritzo Martyr Memorial in Moleso. And I'd like to thank everyone again for their questions. Hopefully, we were able to give them an insight into where the Camacho Ada team stands on the issues that they brought forth to us, and we look forward to getting more questions. And still, I haven't seen a video or audio question come through our way, so hopefully we'll be able to see some of that on ask questions on our social media platform, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook.
However, I'm sure you've heard it, but when we're out there talking with people, they're like, we heard you on the podcast, and we really appreciate the audience that's been out there listening to us and your kind comments. It really is encouraging for us to know that we have an audience out there listening to what we have to say on the many important topics and interests that you have as it affects your lives in our community. So as we close this episode of On the Trail with Felix and
Tony,
we say Sejos Masi, and we'll see you next week.
have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Felix and Tony.